Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
One month ago today, disaster came to San Diego when a heavy downpour soaked the county. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Back then, KPBS talked to a resident and a business owner who suffered losses from the storm. KPBS reporter John Carroll checked in to see how their recovery is going.
To walk through there, and we walk around the neighborhood and we go to the playgrounds and the parks. I mean, we really enjoyed it. It was beautiful.
Jessica Calix talks to us about what life was like in her Southcrest neighborhood. The fourplex where she and her 8-year-old son used to live is just yards from the Choice drainage channel. There's a nature trail next to the channel, but the whole channel was so overgrown then that she thought it was all something akin to a nature preserve.
Animals would come from there, like frogs, and there was always beautiful butterflies, always tons of nature.
Those lovely memories were shattered on January 22nd when the skies opened up. Calix was volunteering at her son's school in Point Loma. The heavy rain concerned her, so she called a neighbor who FaceTimed with her, revealing waist-high water in their apartment. A month later, and the devastation of that day is still raw.
I would say most of the people that were in their homes when it happened, they can't even talk about it because it's so painful.
Now, Calix and her son are living in a hotel paid for by the county, but they can only stay there until early March.
I was in absolute shock.
Several miles away, Natalie Gill arrived at her business, Native Poppy Floral Gift Shop and Warehouse in Mission Valley. The sight that greeted her was hard to comprehend.
It's a glass front door, and I saw that the water was here and all of our gift products were floating like a fish tank.
A month later, and Natalie Gill still can't believe it happened. It started with this what now looks to be a rather calm creek. The water made its way up and over that wall, up through this part of the parking lot, into the floral shop, and believe it or not, there was so much water and it was so powerful that it picked up that flower cooler and moved it a couple of feet. In the weeks since, Gill and her team have been able to clean up the warehouse and get back in business, but it has not been easy. 2 delivery vans parked inside were destroyed. Still, she does see a silver lining. Once her customers found out what happened, they started placing pre-orders, getting Gill the cash she needed to get back to something approaching normal.
Our community has been supporting us through this. We haven't had a ton of help from other government organizations or insurance.
For now, Gill is not eligible for FEMA assistance, and her insurance didn't cover anything but the loss of her delivery vans. For Jessica Calix, life is still turbulent, uncertain. She's not sure where she and her young son will go after they leave their temporary hotel, but she's optimistic the federal disaster declaration for flood-impacted parts of San Diego will help. And like Gill, she has found a silver lining.
Is that I do feel optimistic for the future because all of us neighbors have become super close. We have these WhatsApp group chats and Facebook chats, even Spring Valley, Southeast, this neighborhood, and all of them have 100 people because so many people were affected. So we're all helping each other out.
2 San Diegans reflecting on the horrors of January 22nd, a month later crediting friends, neighbors, the community with helping them on the road to recovery. John Carroll, KPBS News.
I'm Ariella Scalise, and coming up tonight, watching some patchy fog late. Temperatures dropping down to about 50. High pressure continues to build as we head into the weekend, so staying warm and dry. But we're going to watch this next storm moving on through. That's going to bring us cooler weather and the return of rain. We'll show you when coming up.
President Biden is considering new executive actions that could restrict asylum seekers at the U.S.-Mexico border. The plan follows Congress's failed attempt to pass bipartisan immigration reform that would have taken aggressive measures to decrease the number of border crossings. Gloria Pazmino has the details.
The issue has vexed presidents, both Republican and Democrat, for decades. And now, faced with growing criticism for his handling of the border, President Joe Biden is considering executive action likely to draw the ire of progressive Democrats and immigration advocates, taking executive action to restrict migrants seeking asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border.
He started his presidency saying that he was going to be different from Barack Obama and Donald Trump on immigration. He's actually pushed out more executive orders than Donald Trump on immigration because of Congress's failure to act.
The move is similar to controversial policies attempted during the Trump administration and would extend some of the harshest measures in the border compromise legislation that Republicans tanked earlier this month, including a shutdown of the border, which Biden has recently embraced.
If that bill were the law today, I'd shut down the border right now and fix it quickly.
The Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel is reviewing the proposal to see if it could withstand challenges in court.
The bottom line is this is exactly what President Trump tried, but was ultimately enjoined by the courts from doing in 2018.
Even if legally fraught, the move allows Biden to counteract one of his biggest political vulnerabilities.
Securing the border is priority number one, hands down.
We're going to be paying a big price. They have to stop it. They have to close the border.
But without congressional action, the White House is limited in what it can do. And this proposal would only address one issue within a system that is bursting at the seams. I'm Gloria Pazmino reporting.
$6 million in county funding has run out, forcing the County Migrant Center to close its doors today. The Welcome Center was used as a place to help asylum seekers determine their next move instead of being dropped at transit centers. The money to run the center was approved by the County Board of Supervisors from American Rescue Plan funding.
I think what I'm disappointed in is that we did our part. Right? We did our part to provide that bridge as a border community. We stepped up and we gave Congress time to get its act together, and Congress failed us.
South Bay Community Services had been running the facility that served about 400 to 700 migrants per day. The SBCS president released a statement to KPBS which says in part this temporary support was vital and prevented tens of thousands of individuals from being stranded in San Diego without the support needed to continue their journey, as 99.5% of the migrants we served traveled on to the destinations outside of the county. SBCS also says a full accounting of how the money was spent will be sent to the county in the next week to 10 days. Benjamin Franklin built America's first library in Philadelphia in 1731. More than a century later, industrialist Andrew Carnegie funded 1,700 new libraries, dubbing them palaces for the people. These democratic cornerstones are now increasingly under attack amid the nation's current divide. KPBS's Amita Sharma spoke to a San Diego librarian who has had to confront attempted censorship.
A handful of people lined up outside Rancho Penasquitos Library on a chilly morning last week, like eager shoppers on Black Friday.
Morning, how are you? Good. Wow, everybody's showing up today.
Rancho Penasquitos librarian Adrienne Peterson greets them with matched enthusiasm. The 30-year veteran of libraries studied art as an undergraduate, but switched to library sciences for grad school after some self-discovery.
What I learned about myself as I got older, that what's meaningful to me is to help people. And being in a library, being a librarian is a way that I could help every person every day, from the littlest kid to seniors and everybody in between.
Peterson says libraries offer so much more than books. Early literacy programs, resume building, and helping people get their high school diplomas. At a time of fraying social bonds and epidemic loneliness, she notes that libraries are one of the last shared spaces open to everyone.
You don't have to pay to come to the library. The library is here for everybody. Doesn't matter who you are, rich or poor, educated, whatever your religious beliefs are. We don't judge. We don't tell you what to read.
So she was shocked last June when she got a ransom note of sorts from 2 Rancho Penasquitos women objecting to a Pride Month display.
I received an email that was addressed to myself and the library director saying that we protest this type of material being on display, and we've checked out the materials and we will not return them until you remove the display.
The women eventually returned the books, but not before media coverage set off an effort to compensate the library for the threat.
My phone rang off the hook. I was on the phone for days with people saying how shocked they were, how outraged they were, how bad they felt for us, that we'd been targeted with this kind of sentiment, and how could they support us. And people sent books. I had Amazon packages piled up on my desk, and they asked, can we make a donation? Can I go buy some books at Barnes & Noble and drop them off to replenish your display? And on and on.
Peterson says she drew 2 lessons from the incident. Support for libraries and inclusivity is far greater than for censorship. But San Diego is still not immune to people trying to control what others read. Most of the challenges are to books on race and LGBTQ topics.
It's the 2 issues that we just can't get away from in our country.
Robin Gage Norquist leads the San Diego City Library System's Reconsideration Committee, which reviews book challenges.
What's happening is that people are now being frightened. They're told to be scared of these books, and that we're taking them out to protect you.
The concept of public libraries is really kind of radical if you think about it.
Jennifer Jenkins is San Diego Public Library System's Deputy Director of Customer Experience.
Public libraries are one of the few publicly funded resources available to communities with little to no barriers and no cost. And that in and of itself, to be able to have that democratic approach to providing information so that you have an informed citizenry, informed constituency, is, I think, threatening, because knowledge is power.
Back in Rancho Penasquitos, librarian Peterson says libraries and democracies share the same values.
Most people are tolerant and encouraging of others, and that we should all learn how to be a team and find our similarities rather than our differences.
And she hopes the library can help with that. Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, a small but significant sign of progress in the Gaza ceasefire negotiations. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Tens of thousands of cell phone customers coast to coast woke up to find error messages or no service connection at all, meaning no calls or texts, and in some major cities, no ability to dial 911. Lori Geary has more on where the outages stand now as the search for why it happened at all continues.
Downdetector.com was a popular website across the country Thursday as it monitored a widespread national outage impacting a number of wireless carriers, with the most occurring on AT&T's network. Some users report waking up to SOS messages. Others had no connection at all, no ability to make calls, send or receive texts, and in several southeastern states on the AT&T network, 911 service was temporarily unavailable over the past 2 days. The company telling CNN it was working urgently throughout the day to restore service to its customers, encouraging them to use Wi-Fi calling until then. The highest number of AT&T outages were reported across the Midwest, Southeast, and in Texas, according to Downdetector.com. Customers also reported some outages on other major carriers like T-Mobile and Verizon. Although T-Mobile tells CNN they did not experience an outage and are operating normally. But at one point Thursday morning, Downdetector.com showed just under 2,000 outages reported on T-Mobile's network. Verizon also said it was operating normally after peaking at just over 4,000 outages in the morning. As for the why it happened, a wireless industry source says for now, there's no indication that it was a cyber attack or other malicious activity. Public safety experts say wireless network outages often occur for mundane reasons, like construction-related digging or software issues. I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
About 150 high school students from San Diego Unified have accepted the Aspen Challenge. The national academic competition allows young people to work together on solutions to some of their community's most critical problems. KPBS education reporter MG Perez says the 10-week challenge is just getting started.
It kind of felt like a pep rally at times. The Aspen Challenge gets its name from the Aspen Institute, originally founded in Colorado 75 years ago. Today, the international nonprofit organization is challenging high school students to design solutions to problems happening in their communities. For these students from 19 San Diego Unified campuses, immigration is one of those problems.
My grandparents are both, they came to this country legally.
For the first time, the Aspen Challenge is happening in San Diego, with high school teams of 8 students and 2 of their teachers as coaches. They've come to this forum to learn about which challenge they might take on, along with a reality check of what they could face.
Politicians are using the border as a scapegoat, and they see the border as their pathway to power.
The team from Lincoln High School is made up of seniors. Arthur Romo is one of them, who wants to help educate friends who find themselves at an immigration impasse with family members.
Like everybody was like, we know is an immigrant or as immigrant, like parents, to teach them how to, deal with it and like help them to become a citizen.
Most of these problems were created before them and really are not theirs to solve. However, this is their chance to understand these problems and to find a way to find solutions to those problems.
The challenges go beyond immigration. Students can also investigate homelessness in San Diego, climate change and its impact on the ocean and the Southern California weather. Mental health support for students is another option. Whatever challenge these student groups choose, they will have the next 10 weeks to come up with their solutions. They return May 1st to face a panel of judges and defend what they've created. Despite the tough talk, there is hope. First, from San Diego Unified's own superintendent, who has an apology.
My first thing I'm going to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we have not been able to solve some of these challenges. But my hope is that you do better than we did.
Apology and challenge accepted.
That we are able to just come together as a huge community, not just like a little area like San Diego, but just a worldwide community of being able to help each other when we're in need.
Let the work begin.
All of us have the same rights. That's the point. That's the point of human rights.
MG Perez, KPBS News.
Welcome to the moon. Houston, Odysseus has found his new home.
Cool. That's the Odysseus. It's officially made its historic landing on the moon. The lunar lander, nicknamed Odie, touched down at 3:24 this afternoon. There was some turbulence on the voyage after some unexpected issues leading up to the landing. And it's not clear what state the lander is in. This is the first U.S.-made spacecraft to touch down on the moon in 50 years. Well, giant pandas could be back at the San Diego Zoo this summer. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson says the popular bears will likely get a warm welcome.
There is no shortage of anticipation for the return of the black and white bears.
Oh, we're excited to see them. We've never seen them before, so I think he's just as excited.
They're beautiful to see, and they're very curious animals. They like to play, they're very playful.
San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria called the news a major announcement. He says locals look forward to welcoming the pandas back to America's finest city. The first hint this was happening came in November when China President Xi Jinping publicly spoke about the idea. China could be looking at ways to thaw chilly diplomatic relations between the two nations.
We love the giant pandas here in the United States. They love the giant pandas in China. That's something that we can connect on. And I think it can help improve relationships because it's something that we can work together on.
San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance officials say a pair of the rare animals will allow staff to continue to research, observe, and breed the bears. It's been almost 5 years since the last pandas in San Diego went back to China. The zoo hosted giant pandas for more than 20 years.
We do have a very long history working with giant pandas in China, 3 decades and counting. And when we returned our pandas back to China, we did not sever our relationships or stop working on giant pandas. We've continued to collaborate with our partners in China.
The zoo is in line to get a pair of pandas, one male and one female. One of the bears is a descendant of Baiyun and Gao Gao, both former residents of the San Diego Zoo. Baiyun gave birth to 6 cubs in her 2 decades here. Zoo officials are still working on paperwork to complete the transfer, including a permit from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
And I do want to start with our weather headlines because I think you're going to love the first one. Warmer weather carries us through the end of the week and into the weekend. But we're looking ahead. We see another big dip in the jet stream here, tracking that next impact here for the West Coast, which is going to mean cooler temperatures and more rain as we head early into next week. Could see some patchy fog developing late tonight. We're down to about 50 in San Diego, 45 at Oceanside, Chula Vista down to 46, Borrego Springs 48, and a cold night into Mount Laguna down to 31. High pressure continues to build and strengthen here, bringing us a nice, dry, quiet end to the week. Things are looking good in SoCal for our Friday. Temperatures tomorrow around San Diego County bring us to around 70 degrees right here in San Diego. Meanwhile, Borrego Springs, you're up to 76. Mount Laguna, sunshine, 45. And Chula Vista, 70 degrees. Oceanside, 72 for our Friday. What's the pattern as we head into next week? Well, we're going to see a lot of mild air into the center part of the country moving over to the East Coast. But we see more of this dip in the jet stream here, which is going to bring us that cooler weather, making a comeback and also the return of a little bit of rain by the time we head into early next week. So let's take out the next 5 days along the coast here where it's a nice end of the week and start to the weekend. We will notice, though, a big dip in temperatures here from 72 on Friday to only 63 as we head into the day Monday and could see a shower or two. Further inland we go where we will see nice weather on our Friday, 75, and then that slow dip in temperatures. Cooler conditions to start next week, 61 on Monday with more clouds, and we could see a rain shower. As we look into the mountains, it's going to stay cool as we head into the day Friday, a high of 45 with some sunshine. 50, though, on Saturday, breezy conditions Sunday morning, and then more clouds and wind moving in Monday, ahead of windy conditions with a little bit of rain on Tuesday. Wrapping it up in the desert, where we will see temperatures peaking by Sunday, a high of 79, but then a dip in temperatures Monday and Tuesday. For KPBS, I'm Ariella Scalise.
Baseball is back, but the start of spring training was as bad as it gets for the Padres. They lost their first game by a score of 14-1 today against the LA Dodgers. The only bright spot was a home run by Jake Cronenworth. Both teams will play again tomorrow as the Dodgers spring training stadium in Glendale. If you think bugs only as pests to be exterminated, then think again. KPBS arts and culture reporter Beth Accomando says bugs can be delicious and apparently good for you.
Meet edible insect ambassador Joseph Yoon of Brooklyn Bugs.
Right from the very beginning, I did not want to be identified as an insect chef because chefs can be very secretive, and I believed in order for us to create the change and normalize edible insects, that we need someone who can be inclusive, build communities, speak to policymakers and universities, and really be a conduit for sharing and inclusivity.
He's doing precisely that by preparing a bug banquet at San Diego State University.
This here is a cricket powder, and cricket's often considered the gateway bug.
He'll be serving that gateway bug in zucchini breads and a French cheese puff.
And the thing I love about serving this is that when people look at this, they're like, oh, what's that? That has bugs in it? It's like, well, yes, it does. When they eat it, they're like, huh. I have a look of almost disappointment. It tastes like food. It's like, bingo, you got it. And they almost want or expect it to taste disgusting because of the bugs. And then after they try it and realize just how delicious it is.
Oh yeah, they're light and airy.
They often really would like to see what they're eating, and so they're very likely to want to try something where they could actually see the insect and maybe work up to eating a scorpion.
Scorpion kimchi will be on the menu for those who want to see the whole insect.
These scorpions, which will also like really add a beautiful sense of flavor, and really it's like the real sort of star and delicacy of this dish. All right, I'm not gonna put them all in there. Ow, just kidding. We leave the scorpions intact, and we think there's just something so beautiful about having the opportunity to look at something like this, knowing that it's safe to eat, but seeing like the stinger on the scorpions, I think it's really quite beautiful.
Yoon will be serving this on Friday at noon at SDSU's Ellen Ochoa Pavilion. He and food scientists will be on hand to discuss the culinary potential of edible bugs, as well as their nutritional and environmental benefits. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
Interesting stuff. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.